I have not seen him yet.
Okay.
All of a sudden, I'm only getting make this participant the presenter. It's not making you the host. Okay. Let me see if I can change it here.
Hi, this is Tom signing on.
Good evening, Mr. Boudreau. Mr. Kulo, did I see you come in?
Okay, Nate, you should have the host now.
Yep.
Okay, can you see the agenda again now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, we're good.
Great. Mr. Kulo, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Great, we can hear you. Thank you very much. Okay, with that, I'm going to call our meeting to order. So at 7:02 p.m., I will call to order this regular meeting of the Ledyard Planning and Zoning Commission. It is Thursday, August 13th, 2020, and we are meeting remotely. I'll go through the attendance to see who all is here. Mr. Boudreau, you may need to unmute your line in order to say that you are present. Mr. Boudreau. Mr. Boudreau.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Kulo. Mr. Kulo. Mr. Kulo.
I'm here.
Thank you very much. Mr. Jerry.
Here.
Mr. Wood.
Here.
Ms. Evans. Ms. Scanlon.
Here.
Welcome. Mr. Dritko. Okay, Mr. Driscoll is excused, and Ms. Evans is absent. We have all 5 regular members here, so the alternate, Katie Scanlon, will not be seated tonight. So with the no objections from the commission, I am going to rearrange the meeting items slightly. I'm going to move item C under new business to the top of the agenda directly after public hearings. We have the couple of attorneys here, and so I'm going to try to get through that quickly. Hearing no objections, we'll move forward with that. Do we have any citizens petitions? And so this is for non-agenda items. So if you were here to talk to us about the ag regs, you'll have an opportunity to do that when we address that item. So this is if you have any public comments that you'd like to make, not about anything on the agenda. Do we have anyone who wishes to make a comment? Okay, hearing none, we will move on.
Chairman Woody, I just got thank you I just got a text from Hillary Evans. She is tied up at work and is unable to attend, and she wanted me to share that with you.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Ms. Mayor, can you mark Ms. Evans as excused, please? We have no public hearings tonight. So the first item on our agenda is the discussion of Stonegate Village, 10 Flintlock Road, Ledyard, Connecticut, review of a proposed revised stipulation for judgment. So a little bit of history on this, just so everyone remembers. This was originally the request for modifying the stipulated judgment came to us in last October and November, and we discussed this item then. We had a number of changes that we wanted to see to that proposed modification. Our attorney, Mr. Landolina, as well as the applicant's attorney, produced a modified stipulated agreement according to those requested changes that we made. And so that's been brought back to us for a final review. Before I move on to putting a motion in place, Attorney Willis, do you want to speak briefly on this item? You are muted, Mr. Willis, so you'll need to unmute if you wish to speak.
Long night, so if you have a question, I'm more than willing to answer it, but I think this is an appropriate form, and I spoke to Attorney Landolina, and he didn't have any comments.
Great, thank you. I think you cut in partway through that, but I think you just said that you're happy to answer any questions if we have them, but you think that the presented document accurately represents what we requested?
Yes.
Great, thank you. So I will go ahead and make a motion to put on the table, and then we can discuss this. So I make a motion to approve the proposed modifications to stipulated judgment, docket number HHD CV12 6038939S, Third Garden Park LP versus Ledyard Zoning Commission, as discussed by the Commission on August 13th, 2020, and direct the town attorney and plaintiff's attorney to prepare a final document for submittal to Superior Court. Can I have a second?
Second by Marty Wood.
Thank you. It's a second from Mr. Wood. So I had a couple of quick questions for Attorney Willis. The first is paragraph 9 has the dates by which to have the shed in place and to clean up the current 312 pitch roof. That's set for June 2020. We've rocketed by that. Just because of how it's worked. I assume that work has not been done.
My understanding is that it has been done.
Okay, so you're comfortable leaving those dates as is?
Yes, it's been completed, so I'm not worried about that.
Okay, great. Second question, paragraph 10, which discusses the additional evergreen landscaping that's going to be placed. And this is the tiniest of complaints, so you'll have to bear with me. Could we change in the last sentence, can we change modification to addition? Just to make it clear that that's an addition to the original landscaping plan and not a replacement or anything like that for the existing plan?
That's fine. I mean, that's fine.
Okay. The last item on my list was, and part of this is me asking the commission's recollection on this. We had significant discussion during the public workshops on this about what to do regarding the second entrance. So there's a second entrance that I believe is grassed, or maybe it's a little bit gravelled, and has a locked gate. I know that we had a fair amount of discussion on that, and I thought that we had left that as we wanted that entrance to be accessible. And I didn't see anything about that in the modified agreement here. And so from the commission, what are other commissioners' recollection or opinions on what we wanted with that second entrance?
Commissioner Cherry,
Please.
paragraph 29 of the stipulated agreement that we are changing,
So the original stipulated agreement?
original calls for it to be ungated, that the gate be, that it not be gated. And during our discussions, we let that stand. There was significant discussion in the original approval. Back when the development was first approved by zoning on that entrance, that was added as an amendment at that time to gate that entrance. It looked like the commission discussed quite a bit the safety aspect of not having a second entrance. And as we move forward and we hope to fully populate this development, if you refer to our subdivision regs, we require 2 entrances to any new subdivision with more than 30 homes. This will have more than 30 homes. It's not a subdivision, but I think that's still a good rule of thumb. If something were to happen, you'd want another way to get in without somebody looking for where's the key, how to open the gate type thing. So I think that was our discussion back when we did the discussion after the public hearing, to my recollection, to let paragraph 29 stand.
Yep. So, Mr. Willis, is that your client's interpretation as well, that paragraph 2, where in the modified stipulated agreement, does not strike paragraph 29 of the original agreement? And so paragraph 29 should stand, that the second entrance will not be gated and will be a full second access to the property?
I think Mr. Willis is muted.
He is not.
I think that's how the agreement reads right now. I know at the last meeting, whenever that was, we discussed it. I know it was pre-COVID. There was discussion, I think, about locks and gates, but I don't think there was any final resolution. So it wasn't modified. So I guess it stands.
Any other discussion from the commission on that item or any others?
Commissioner Boudreau,
Please, Mr. Boudreau.
being an effect emergency services driver, I certainly want another.
Okay, great. Any other discussion from commissioners?
Commissioner Cherry, if I could,
Please.
just an observation. We let paragraph 18 of the original stipulation stand, and that points out that the regulations that apply to Stonegate are those that are referenced in the stipulated agreement are those from October 2012. It's not referenced in the agreement, goes back to the original special permit approval and that set of regulations.
Yep. Any other comments from commissioners? Hearing none, I'll ask Roxanne to call the vote, please.
Nate?
Whoop, hold on one sec, Mr.
I'm
Willis.
on. I'm sorry. I guess I was.
No problem. It's no problem, Jeff.
I stopped by yesterday, and that second gate was still gated. The second entrance was still locked and gated. So I guess the question is, when would that be fixed? When will that gate be removed?
Yeah, Mr. Wells, I don't believe is there anything in the I know that we called out the RV parking lot to be completed prior to anything else. I don't recall anything in the current agreement that would put a timeline on finishing anything else from the original agreement.
I don't think there is, not to my memory.
Would you be amenable to adding the second entrance to paragraph 13 in the modified judgment that ties it to the RV parking lot? So that essentially you would need to do both of those improvements prior to the addition of any new buildings?
If it means opening the gate, then I guess that would be okay. I don't know the extent of any other improvements regarding the gate.
So it would need to be accessible by at least emergency vehicles. And so it would need to be a material that could withstand heavy vehicle traffic. That'd be
That's
the bare
fine.
minimum.
That's fine.
Okay. So we will modify paragraph 13 of the modified stipulated agreement to include the plaintiff shall complete development of the RV parking lot and opening of the second entrance as specified in the original site plans prior to the addition of any new buildings. Thank you, Mr. Kula. Last call for any comments from commissioners. All right, Roxanne, one more time.
Mr. Cherry,
Yes.
Mr. Kulo,
Yes.
Mr. Wood,
Yes.
Mr. Woody,
Yes.
Mr. Boudreau.
Yes.
5 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you all. The motion carries. Okay. Give me one to close some tabs. Okay. Next item on our agenda is moving back to old business. Item A, informal workshop on proposed agritourism, agribusiness zoning regulations, public comment and discussion. So I'll give a very brief introduction to. I apologize. If you could mute your line, I'd appreciate it. There's a fair amount of echo on the line. A brief introduction on this. So currently there is a number of locations in town where there are agribusiness or accessory agriculture things going on. And currently our regulations don't allow most of that. And there is no mechanism for us to allow that with our current regulations. And so what we're trying to do is put together a set of regulations that allow a mechanism for a farm to do things, that we specify here. And this is everything from having events on your farm to pick your own to selling both your items that you grow on the farm and processed items from your farm. And so that's really where this came from. We started with the primary with the North Stonington regulations that already exist around agribusiness. And we modified those into a draft regulation. A couple of things that I'll point out here, just so that people kind of understand some of this. I think sometimes this is really obvious for us, but less obvious to other people. In these regulations, we classify everything into needing one of three things. So the first is a zoning permit. A zoning permit is essentially the lowest level of permission. A zoning permit is the same kind of thing that you need to get if you are going to put a shed on your property. And so it involves usually I muted the lines for a lot of background noise. So if after this you want to speak, you'll need to unmute your line. A zoning permit is the simplest thing that you can need. It involves a trip to the land use office and filling out a form for the most part. After that is what is called a site plan review. Site plan review means that you have to draw up what you want to do on your property and bring it to the commission for a review. In the regs, we talk about the things that we're looking for. In this case, I think a lot of what we're looking for is just making sure that we've got a place for parking, that there's separation between cars and people, and that type of thing. A site plan does not necessarily mean that you need to go get a brand new A2 survey with all the features on it. In our regulations, we allow a number of exceptions where all you may need to do is take an existing survey and mark it up with a pen to show the types of things that you're doing. The last level is a special permit or a special exception. And this is a special permit is a fairly involved process. So that means that you have to bring an application to the commission. A public hearing will need to be held. And after that public hearing, which is where the public can weigh in on your application, we will then decide whether or not to permit it. What we tried to do with the agriculture regs is classify as many things as we possibly could under zoning permit, meaning that as many things as possible you can solve without ever needing to talk to this commission. And above that, we tried to resolve most things through a site plan review, which means you should be able to come to us in one night and be done. The other thing is, if you look at the agricultural regs, I think you'll see what we tried to do is organize agriculture into 3 different groups. The first is home husbandry, which is also known as backyard chickens. So this is for people who want to have 6 chickens or 4 rabbits in their backyard. This is a reorganization of existing regulations that we have to try to put them in one place. The second level is a home farm, and this is meant to be a low-intensive farm that is owned primarily for making produce for the residence itself, or for someone. We have several people in town who own horses, that kind of thing, purely for their own enjoyment. Lastly is the commercial farm, and a commercial farm is an entity that is being run for a profit. And it's these commercial farms, it's these entities that we've attached most of these agricultural accessory uses to, so that when you're a commercial farm, that's when you start to get permission to be able to do that type of thing. So brief on timeline here. So these are proposed regulations that have been with the commission for a couple of months as we've iterated them on a couple of times. This informal workshop is a means for the commission to talk to the public, get feedback, but in an informal way. After this, we will move to a formal regulation change process. I expect to take the input that we get tonight, make any modifications that need to be made to the current draft, and submit that in September. I will hold the public hearing open for this for 2 months. So we'll have the public hearing in the fall after that, which will give more opportunities for people to come and speak to us. So with sort of a rough talk about what the regulations are and what the timeline is, I will open this up for anyone who wishes to make a comment. And so, again, this is an informal opportunity. So I invite commissioners, if they have questions, please feel free to communicate. This is really just about making sure that we hear from people and we understand what people are saying before we move to a formal application process. And so if you wish to speak, what you'll have to do is unmute your line, state your name so that we know who's talking, and go from there. If you're having trouble, you can also enter something into the chat. I'll see it there and be able to unmute you.
Mr. Chairman, this is Eric Treaster.
Please, Mr. Treaster.
A couple of questions on the farming. The idea of having weddings on farms has been around forever, and I was curious. I think it's generally recognized that wine tastings and wineries and weddings on apple farms and weddings and at wineries and so forth. They've been around forever. They're all over the planet, and they're traditional and very common. And I was wondering why those uses do not fall under the accessory definition in the zoning regs, which and as a use that is allowed by right.
Yeah,
that's one question. The second question is, what is the ultimate goal? Zoning has four purposes: protection of health, safety, convenience, and property values. And I was curious what the objective of the farm regs are. Thank you.
Yep, thanks. And so I'll answer briefly, and write those down. So first of all, the reason we don't consider it an accessory use, and so I can give you two answers. So the first is one is intensity, and so the size and scope of a wedding being held on a farm can be problematic. One of the things that several towns in the area have done to try to accommodate that is they have set a frequency bar, which says that if you hold an event like a wedding fewer than 4 times a year, then it's considered an accessory use, because it is accessory to whatever true farming operation you are doing, and it is not the primary use of the property. And so when that frequency becomes high enough that it is a significant or primary use of the property, then it no longer is classified there. So as far as the goal of this, I think it's twofold. So I think it's to protect property values, to make sure that these uses don't get out of control, but it's also to allow what we think are reasonable uses. Because as far as I'm concerned, the current regulations don't allow a way of many of these type of things being legally done. And I think many of them should be legally done. Other people who wish to make comments? Mr. Treaster, if you don't mind, just let everyone speak, and if everyone's done, you want to go, that's fine again.
This is Russell.
Hi, Mr. Holmberg, please.
So first of all, thanks for taking up this issue, working on that in the commission, and really thanks for having some feedback. Obviously, at Holmberg Orchards, this is going to impact a lot of what we do. So just a couple comments just from afar and a question for you. We'll start with the question. The permits. So you have whether it's a site plan or it's a commission reviewed permit. What's it? Is that once a year, once forever, and you're done? How does that look?
It's typically one and done. So you would come in, you would get a site plan or a special permit that would show that, yes, you're able to do whatever thing that you have wanted to do is. Once you have established that you are doing that, if you make no changes to the property, that use is retained. So it's not a yearly permit. It is a land use right.
Okay. So the farmer in me recoils a little bit when a lot of times what you're parsing out under the farm law. I don't know if there's a way to put this. That we don't create an avenue that somebody can just tag the word farm at the end of a property and all of a sudden create a wedding venue out of thin air. Show a schedule F for 1,500 bales of hay, or $1,500 in hay rather, and then all of a sudden they've got a wedding venue, or what reasonably should be a retail shop, or you name it, or a restaurant, and they're running that at what could be a farm. Obviously, if it's property, we are indeed a farm, but we need a lot of these activities to sustain ourselves, especially pick your own. So for what it's worth, when you're writing definitions, just some feedback from the communities, make sure that we are indeed protecting farms. Really, really, really important to us. What else do I have in my notes here? I think that might be it for now.
Yeah, that's great. And so the comment I'll make is we share that concern with separating what is a true commercial farm, so a farm operation, versus something that isn't really a farm but is trying to get access to being able to do some of these things which wouldn't be allowed in a residential zone under any other circumstances. And so the only way we know to try to separate those two, and again, I invite a better or more elegant solution, is essentially to go the IRS route. So the current regulations, in order to be a commercial farm, and you'll forgive me, I've forgotten the exact form, but you have to present to the town an IRS form, which is the farming profit and loss form, to show that you are actually, generating revenue from the farm.
Yeah.
And so, if
Just for the record, it's Schedule F of 1040.
Mr. Wood?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I said, just for the record, it's IRS Schedule F 1040 that you're thinking of.
Thank you very much.
The Department of Agriculture at the Connecticut State Department of Agriculture might be a resource for that. They keep a running list of farms that they would consider farms too. So it just might be another avenue to pursue.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Hello.
Is that Mr. Mogul?
Yes, it is. How are you?
Good. How are you? Good to see you again, Mr. Mogul. Please.
Good to see you. In addition to what Mr. Holberg was really insightful and very helpful, I wanted to point out that you can also get a 1065 if you're an LLC, is acceptable by the state of Connecticut to prove that you have farm income. And they are talking also about a potential for a minimum farm income to be actually a working farm, rather than it monetizes rather than says it's so many acres. Because we often in some of these areas have greenhouses which don't have a lot of acreage, but do have an income being produced from those greenhouses. So monetizing it as a co-established or co-way to establish a farm might be helpful in the end. Again, I also see this impacting our business tremendously, because we are already and have for many years conducted all kinds of events here. And we do have a substantial amount of off-street parking. Again, I've gone through these, and I believe that really quite helpful if we could set up let me see here, a conference or a public workshop where all the farmers, or rather a vast majority of the farmers, could become more involved and express their thoughts, because there's an awful lot to these regulations. And I was given a copy of a component of them about a week ago. Again, I've been focused on them, and I have another focus as well, but this is where you're at now. So I figured I'd talk to you about establishing a public workshop to bring more farmers in and have them more openly discuss these regulations, the potential regulations.
Yep, and so, as I stated, that's part of the reason for this forum, and it's also why I intend on holding the public hearing open when we do this for 2 months, because that allows a forum for everyone to speak, for the commission to make any changes, and then again re-advertise that to come to the commission. My approach on this is that until you have something that reads like a regulation that can be approved, it's very difficult to really get down to brass tacks on what needs to be changed, what's wrong with the proposed regs, what needs to be added to the regs. And so, I'll say the same thing to you, to everyone on the line. Feel free. You can send written comments if after this meeting, you realize, oh, I should have corrected this. By all means, send written comments. And that will get routed to the commission, and it will get added to the public hearing as well. So there's no intention to hide this from anyone. The draft regs that we've shown today have been available on the town website for a couple of months. And this is really just the first time that we've brought them out into the public to get comment.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. you're looking at a number of permits here for different things and a number of site plans. But you just said that it's one and done. Is that true for all of these components, or is there a significant amount of these that for different activities, for example?
So you're essentially asking if I wanted to bring a site plan to do things from two different categories in the accessory uses.
Correct.
That would be a single site plan.
All right.
Would bring in a single site plan that would demonstrate how you could accommodate those uses. We would approve or deny that site plan, and then you would be done. The only time that you would come back to us is if you were making some sort of a change. So if you wanted to add yet another use, or you wanted to add a new building, right? All of those would be considered changes that you'd have to come back to update your site plan. But when things don't change, then you retain that use as granted.
Very good. So these permits, these regulations are not impacted, not in force at this moment. Is that? I've gone over the previous regs and I can't find very much on agriculture at all. Home husbandry, yes, but agricultural, nothing. Unless I missed something, I didn't see any previous regs on agriculture.
No, I agree. And so you know this, other people may not know this. If our regs don't grant you the right to do something, then the regs deny you the right to do that. And that's where we are right now, that the current regs don't allow a lot of these uses. And the point of these regs is to try to put a framework in place so that we can allow these uses. Anything else, Mr. Margle, or is it okay to free the floor for someone?
I'd like to hear what other folks have to say.
Great.
Thank you very much, though.
Thank you, Mr. Margle.
Mr. Chair.
Please.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Wood. A comment first. Well, I guess they're both comments, but one is in the form of a question. I think I'd like to see the mentioned in our agri regs, the Right to Farm Act reference in here somewhere is myself. I'd like to see that referenced. The CGS section 19A-341, just to make us and everyone else aware that there is a Connecticut statute that, that is a Right to Farm Act. And we do mention about nuisance and frivolous lawsuits in this draft. So I'd like to see that reference in here, just as a comment. My second comment is on this particular one that we're talking about. We talk about a site plan, and I would like to say that the speakers so far are commercial farmers, and I'm wondering why we have not mentioned a business plan to be also reviewed by the planning and zoning for commercial farms. I think that would give us a vision of where these commercial farms might like to expand to. So I'm throwing it out there for discussion to both the commercial farmers and the home farmers on what the thought is on that. Thank you.
So, Mr. Wood, is your thought that the asking for a business plan would be a means of understanding the difference between a home farm and a commercial farm?
No, thank you, Chair Woody. My request for that is Russell asked a question about, is this a one-time site plan? And you, and of course you answered that. You also said if the site plan changes, then you have to come back to the commission and get the site plan reviewed and approved by adding a building. I think it would be beneficial to myself as a commissioner to know what your business plan is. so that we have an idea of what future expansion you may be thinking of. So it's information. I'm not asking for the business plan to be approved. I'm just asking that we make in the provision when they submit the site plan that they also submit a business plan.
Okay, it's an interesting idea. I'm not quite sure how we'd act on it. I'm not sure what we would do with it. The one thing I will say is when you present a site plan is not just the state of the ground right now, right? So if you plan on building, 2 additional buildings in the next 5 years, right? You could include those in your site plan for site plan approval, right? And then you would have the locations of those buildings approved as part of that site plan. So you do have some mechanism to do that sort of thing. It's an interesting idea. It's something we'll keep in mind. And I would just worry about whether or not I'm not sure I would know what to do with a business plan presented by a farm. We could certainly ask, for some sort of a narrative describing, what the farm intends on doing. I'm not sure it would be legal for us to do anything with it. But it's an interesting idea to try to help us understand what's going on.
Yes, thank you. And I'm just thinking of it as informational. I would think any commercial farmer would have a business plan. And if you look at any of the institutions, the extension service, if you look at Penn State, there's all kinds of classes and all kinds of forms of business plans. So I think we're not asking for anything except to have the business plan be as a courtesy submitted along with the site plan. That's my thought.
Great. Anyone else from the public who wishes to make comments?
Yeah, hi, this is Bill Thorne.
Hi, how you doing?
We're 3 Adios Lane, Ledyard. My comment is, I understand how you're scrutinizing these farms, but I'm familiar with the Gales Ferry Design District and the Ledyard Center Design District. And I'm wondering how you didn't scrutinize those 2 developments of converting the school there to retail, and now the Ledyard Center School to retail. And I believe, reading the regulations, that neither of those meet the Ledyard Center or Gales Ferry Design District. I think one of the things that the mayor has said is that the town is the worst offender. I just wonder why we are drilling down on farms at the same time we're allowing other businesses that are beneficial to the town to proceed.
Thank you for your comments. So I'll answer briefly. So first of all, again, I don't view this as us trying to drill down on farms. I view this as we're trying to put something in place so that farms can prosper and do it legally, because our current regulations don't allow that. And so I think there's fair complaints or questions about how we may approach that attempt at regulation. But the intent is not to punish farms. It's to provide a way so that they can legally prosper. As far as Ledyard Center, I would guess that you were referring to the design guidelines, which in our current regs are not binding. They are guidelines. And the conversion of the school to mixed use is in line with both the POCD and the regulation.
Okay, I'll just say, I think that is BS.
Okay.
You have those regulations and you hold other people to those requirements, and you don't hold them to those developments that are town supported. And I'm just saying, you are fanatical about farms, and this is ridiculous given the fact that our town is a farming community, and you allow other things to happen that happen to be beneficial to the town. Done.
Okay. I appreciate your comments. Truly. Anyone else from the public who wishes to speak?
My name is Allison Angelini.
Hi, Allison.
I live at 193 Iron Street. And for those who are unfamiliar, I own Folk Farm, which is a small vegetable farm. We've been operating for the past 9 years. And under the proposed regulations, primarily due to acreage and setback requirements, I'm not sure that our commercial farm would be allowed to exist. We farm 3 parcels, each have 3 or fewer acres. But on just an acre and a half of land, we about 250 families a week, as well as providing vegetables to about a dozen local restaurants and other wholesale accounts. I'm worried about the land size requirements becoming a big obstacle for first generation farmers interested in starting an agribusiness in town, because land access is such a huge obstacle. And of course, I'm worried about the personal ways in which we'd be affected by these regulations. You know, we grow 6 figures on an acre and a half, so I don't understand the 5 acre requirement in order to run a commercial business.
So thank you for your comments. So first, I will say, I don't believe, and we'll double check on this, I don't believe there are any setback requirements for crops. And so the only setback requirements that are in there right now are for buildings or for livestock, just as an aside, but I will double check on that. The second comment that you made. I
guess my concern with the setbacks more specifically is, you know, we have received permits for high tunnels that abut the property lines, or, you know, within that 200-foot setback in the new regulations.
Yep.
And those structures are designed to reduce erosion and allow us to better care for the land. But it seems like my concern is that they wouldn't be allowed under the new regulations.
Yep. So your comment about intensive farming on small lots is something that we've discussed frequently. And what we have, again, struggled with, and the primary reason that the acreage limit is in there is because we struggle with this ability to separate out commercial farms from home farms. And so trying to grant rights specifically to farms. And so how much land are your parcels combined, if you don't mind me asking?
Our entire tract of land, for which, I mean, I have been through planning and zoning, because for a while we had to lease land that we owned to ourselves so that we could farm the whole property. But the tract has a federal tract number and is 6 1/4 acres.
Okay.
Again, it's sort of unclear under these new regulations how that would be accepted. And my concern for encouraging other farmers to start businesses in town is still there.
Yep.
Correct.
Well, I think those points are valid. It's something that we struggled with. The intention of the regulations, and we will again double check that wording, is that adjacent parcels under common ownership or even there was wording at one point that leased adjacent land counted toward the 5 acre minimum. We'll double check on that. And, you know, again, we are also open to ideas on ways to bring or eliminate that acreage requirement if we can make sure that it's, you know, farms only are getting those rights. Because we have no interest in trying to close operations such as yours.
If I could, Chairman Woody?
Please, Mr. Cherry.
I remember 9 years ago when Allison first came before the then zoning commission, and I was on the planning commission. She had two parcels, both which were a little bit over an acre and a half. And we needed 3 acres. And the argument was those two plots added together were larger than the 3 acre minimum we were looking for. And she was allowed, actually, I think, to put one of the tunnel structures across the property line because they're more or less temporary. I agree with you. Our intent is not to eliminate any agricultural business that exists in town. It's to better define what they are and protect them through zoning regs. I think Paul Mogul may have mentioned something about not just acreage, but maybe dollar value being done. I mean, you know, especially if you were doing something that was high intensity hydroponic, you could be on a small parcel, but it's farming and you could generate a large income from it and provide a lot of food to the local area. So I agree with Angela, and I think that's something we need to go look at. Allison, I'm sorry. That's something we need to go further look at.
Just to be clear, when my first tunnel was approved, it had to be within that 50-foot set. It was 50 feet at the time.
Yeah, and I agree with
It
Chairman
is bizarrely in the middle of my yard, which is why I brought up the point of the 200-foot setback. Our whole property, if we measured in 200 feet from either side, I wouldn't be able to have any tunnels for growing food in the winter.
Well, you could grow spaghetti down the middle, right? And you know, everybody asked the early on, Chairman Woody talked about 3 types of approval: the permit, the site plan, and the special permit. Special permit or special exception allows a use that wouldn't be allowed unless you meet some certain things, and that goes with the land. So very often we worry the use changes. Do I need another special permit? And Allison, I don't want to pick on you, but early on, I don't think you were growing flowers. Now you are, and it's a very successful part of your business. So a special permit use does allow the elephant to grow as it gets bigger, and you don't need a new permit unless you change uses. However, with the site plan, changing the characteristics of the site, that's going to affect traffic flow, pedestrian flow, buildings, that would require an update to a site plan. And I believe our regulations still talk about minor changes and major changes. Go look at that, because once again, our intent is not to bog you down in paperwork as Russ was worried about, but to get it permitted and protect the farmer from the neighborhood that grows around it and says, that farm can't be there. It's a residential neighborhood. Well, all our neighborhoods are residential. So it's really to help protect you. Thank you.
I guess my feeling is that we're well supported by our neighbors in our community and have come across a number of hurdles with the town. And that's why it doesn't read that way from my point of view. For me to operate a successful business in this town requires a lot of nimbleness. And so that means that, you know, I am constantly adapting and modifying our business plan to meet the ever-changing market demands and to best feed the families in our town that we feed. And so it feels as though it could become a burden to need to update permits as regularly as we're changing our business plan in response to weather and changing markets.
Well, I think, once again, Chairman Cherry, I don't think your business plan is part of zoning. That's just my opinion. So, you know, when we get around to it, you know, we ask for a narrative with a special permit. That's probably more than adequate. The business plans are going to change based on what's going on in the world. I mean, you've been a godsend through the virus, as have Holmberg's being able to buy locally grown food and meeting needs of the community. So what I would ask Allison is take a red pen and mark up the regulations as they currently are. And if there's an area that's unclear or you can't see it serves any useful purpose or could be done better, please mark it up and get it back to us. Because once again, we're on the outside looking in, and we tried back when we had the consultant to look at farming regs, and we got nowhere. I think the regulations protect our farmers as much as regulate agriculture.
I would just like to make a comment, and this is Jill Thorne, Bill's wife, so that's why we're on the same thing. And I'm glad to hear some of Mike's comments just now. And just as a concerned member of the public and an avid user of Allison's farm, or should I say, eater of Allison's farm produce, I just want to say I would love to hear that a stated goal is to encourage farming in Ledyard. As Mike just said, it's invaluable, and we're learning more day by day how valuable it actually can be. And we face some of the things that we have been facing in the last few months, and we could face in the future. And I think we need to look at local farmers as an invaluable asset, not make regulations be a burden on them. And I do understand the desire to codify some things, but it's just so often regulations beget more regulations, and we just need to be so careful about that. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate the comments. Any other members of the public who haven't had a chance to speak yet? Okay, hearing none. If any of the people who have already spoken have an additional comment they'd like to make, I'll allow that now before we move on.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Treaster.
Thank you. A couple of things. I agree with Mike Cherry that P&Z should not be looking at dollars of individual businesses. That's out of scope. Business plans, dollars, and so forth are not appropriate for a zoning commission to be looking at. It's very confidential, and it's proprietary, and it's just unfair to make that a requirement. Second is that many of the provisions, in my opinion, many of the provisions in the draft agricultural regs appear to be out of scope of 8.2a enabling statutes. There's a lot of things in there that just simply do not fall within the authority of the commission. So hopefully somebody will look at that and confirm that and check to make sure that the right to farm laws and the farming businesses and so forth, make sure that those are all within the scope of 8.2a. I believe that some are not. The third is a question. I'm curious if there have been any complaints regarding the weddings, the music, the wine tastings, and so forth. Have there been any complaints that are driving this set of regulations, or is the entire purpose to avoid complaints in the future? Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I don't want to speak to individual complaints. Yes, there have been complaints. I think the motivation is driven both by complaints that have occurred and to avoid them in the future. But the real driving motivation is that our current regulations don't allow many of these uses, and we're trying to put a framework in place that will allow them. Anything else from anyone who's already spoken before we end this?
Chairman Woody.
Mr. Kula?
Commissioner Woody.
I think I heard Mr. Kula first.
Yes, I have a question, a follow-up on what Paul Mogul was saying about the criteria for a commercial farm, and we've been talking about this, and I think he said it should be monetized rather than specified in a number of acres. And I agree with that. I mean, the number of acres is subjective, and we have to guess as to what size farm would be commercial versus not commercial. But then you would need maybe a similarly subjective value for for the money amount. I mean, you could have a farm that it's starting out, it could lose money, but it would still be a commercial operation. And so I'm wondering, is there some IRS definition or some other source for a good definition of a commercial farm that would not be based on acreage? And is that something that Paul Mogul knows about?
So I think the current draft regs use one. Mr. Mogul suggested another one, another form that we could look at. And Mr. Mogul, I can see your hand.
Well, yeah, the Department of Agriculture, when we renew our permits, the Department of Labor, all these folks have and established that we are farmers based on our income. Now, we already have to present some of this data, like a 1065, because I'm an LLC, presented to renew my winery permit. So that's established. That's not for everyone, I'm sure, but we do have a tax exempt status as farmers. This is something we need to renew on an annual, well, biannual basis, and that requires that a minimum income be met, and you have to provide that income to the state of Connecticut. So a tax exempt status as a farm, so you would present it when you go and buy commodities to clean your room, for example, and things like this to sanitize. These are things that you need to do on a daily basis. So this tax exempt status is established by the state of Connecticut, and you could present that copy to the Board of Zoning or whatever. Here we are, tax exempt farmer based on the state of Connecticut regulations, and which are well established over a period of years. You know, it's not something new. It's well established and understood. Just a thought.
Yep. Thank you. Ms. Burdick, I saw your hand up. I assume it's relevant.
Yes, I have a question for all the farmers out there. Last year, I attended a Casio seminar regarding agriculture, and I asked the Department of Agriculture representative, what is a farm? And we had discussions about this for about an hour and a half, and I never actually got an answer. And we're talking about income here versus zoning. So my question to the farmers is, how did you start being a farmer if you weren't making any money? How were you recognized as a farm? And this is where zoning sort of clashes with the IRS, the tax assessor, whatnot, because in order to be considered a farm, you have to make a certain amount of money. But how do you start a farm and be a farm if you have to make a certain amount of money?
If I
That's
may,
my question.
Yep, please.
In the first year or so of your beginning the farming, the Department of Agriculture and the Department of Revenue Services gives us a benefit of doubt, in which we have to, over a period of 2 or 3 years, establish that we are producing a certain level of income to meet this tax exempt status. In other words, you could be there waffling around and messing up for a year or so, or maybe a little longer, but they allow you to enter farming without this barrier to startups, for example. You know, a small farm. Everyone starts somewhere. You know, we all don't. Other folks, you know, it just seems that if the state is willing to give a benefit of the doubt for a year, maybe Ledyard could do that as well. I don't know. Just a thought.
Thank you. That was so far the best answer I've gotten to that zoning question.
I agree.
Chairman Woody, if I could once again.
Mr. Cherry.
Mr. Cherry, first of all, we're not regulating farms, we're regulating agricultural uses. And part of, I mean, Russ Holmberg early on said planting an acre of hay so you can call yourself agricultural use and take an accessory use to run weddings at 200 and 300 guests or an outdoor concert or what have you is probably an abuse of the regulations. And we looked at that and we're trying to figure out how to go do that, sharing Russ's concerns that having an accessory use that makes the agricultural uses viable is what we're trying to achieve with this set of regs. not enabling somebody that has some acreage to suddenly be able to hold events.
Chairman Woody.
Thank you, Mr. Wood.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Wood. I have two comments. The first 19 years of my career, I was a Pennsylvania farmer raising livestock and doing dairy cattle. And so under section 6, add the following revised sections. Under D, agricultural uses, and it has to do with something that Allison also brought up, and it's the setbacks. It says that if, basically it says if two farmers with livestock are right adjacent to each other, they need to have setbacks 100 feet from any property line. And so I'm questioning the wisdom of that statement when it's under livestock and the adjacent property is categorized as a farm because of the common fence to keep the animals separated. Also conservation of maintaining that. And my other comment is under the farm products definition, since we're talking about all of these, Ledyard has a hemp farm, and I'm not sure I see hemp in this farm products here. And also, when cannabis becomes a food, maybe, I'm wondering, one, this comprehensive list of farm products, if it's not listed there, it's kind of like, okay, it's not listed, so you can't do it. But I'm curious on why hemp isn't there, and then maybe future plant products.
Fair enough. So on the first point, I agree. So we have notes from a previous conversation about the setbacks should be restricted to residential boundaries, and I think those setbacks for livestock is still something that is open for interpretation. It's something we've bounced back and forth several times. The specific case that you mentioned, I 100% agree. Yeah. Any other commissioners?
And when the other one was on farm products, I'm sorry. I don't see hemp, and we have a hemp farm in Ledyard. And it's not up to resolve tonight. I mean, this is a workshop, right? Where we're.
My pause was merely because I was reading that list because I had thought that all crops were covered in there, but it's a really long paragraph, so I was trying to read through. If that was missing something, I believe that is taken from Connecticut statute. But I've certainly added to the lists to think about is to make sure that hemp is considered covered. Oh no, it says raising or harvesting any horticultural.
So maybe just I'm not. I am trying to make it comprehensive. I mean, in this workshop, however, to restrict, to overdefine also makes it tough too.
So, Mr. Wood, the very beginning of the definition says raising or harvesting any agricultural, horticultural commodity. That to me would certainly cover hemp.
You want to add in something about value-added products?
That is in there.
All right.
Yeah. I mean, I'm open to, anyone adding things, but, we certainly do include results from processing on farm. But yeah. Any other comments from commissioners?
Yeah, this is Bill Thorne, 3 Adios Lane, Ledyard. Comment which is sort of related to what I originally made. I'm not against looking at farms. I think where we should be embracing farms as opposed to minimizing farms. But I would like to express, and Roxanne, if you could put this in the minutes, I would like to hear from the zoning and planning Wetlands Commission, I guess they're called now.
So this is the Planning and Zoning Commission, just so you're aware.
Planning and Zoning Commission, how we are allowing what, and I'm all for what's going on in Ledyard Center and the school conversion, but how do we allow that under the existing Ledyard Center design districts, and how we allowed what happened in Gales Ferry with the school under the existing conditions? Yet, I mean, I'm just saying, we seem to have turned a blind eye to the things that are beneficial to the town, and where we are turning our backs or scrutinizing farms. And I'm sorry, but that's how I view it. You know, the Ledyard Center School does not conform to the Ledyard Center Design District, and it is a change of use. I would just like to see that in writing somewhere.
Okay, I appreciate your comments. So I've already addressed our impression of what happened at the Ledyard School. This commission approved the site plan that for that, and so this commission has already stated on the record where we stand on the school. You know, regarding these regs, I'll say it again. You know, this commission, the intent of this work is not in any way to punish or to attack farming. We think farming is an important part of this community, and we want to support that. And the reason that we're holding this workshop and the reason that we'll hold several public hearings is to make sure that any regs that we pass don't end up punishing farms. So that's really the intent. Last call from comments from commissioners.
Russell Holmberg.
Yeah, Mr. Holmberg, please.
I just wanted to address Liz's question about what is a farm, because I brought it up. So just a little follow up since then. Unfortunately, a lot of this is I know it when I see it, and we pay a CEO. I mean, it seems like you could make some of these regs subject to inspection or discretion of the zoning enforcement officer down. I would think we could send Kyle out, and you can kind of get a sense talking and looking around pretty quick if things look a little fishy. But the other part, which kind of I realized that she's talking, she says, "How'd you get your start in farming?" I can't tell you exactly when our farm started. I'm the fourth generation here. Hopefully my kids will be the fifth. So it just kind of touches on another. It does things like apple picking, to have to pull a permit for apple picking, which is something that's an activity that's been occurring on our farm pre-zoning. You know, we've been doing it for like 100 years, had the community come out and help pick apples. It is some of the special events, I get it, but it is a little onerous on some of those. It's making us kind of pause for a minute when we're looking at activities that I've done, my father's done, my grandfather's done, his father's done for farms. So a little bit of a pause there.
Yeah, I can understand that. We went into this understanding that this would not be a comfortable process for anyone, and so we appreciate your frankness and everyone's frankness with where they are on it. So truly, I appreciate that.
Sure.
Ms. Burdick, and then I think we're going to move off of this.
Yes, I'll be really fast, and I just want to say that one of the main reasons that we put these regs together is to help farmers be able to have weddings, be able to have concerts, be able to have maybe a farm restaurant. That's why we're doing this, not to, as Nate said, punish farmers. We want to be able to allow them to legitimately have these uses. So, this was a good workshop. And, the other thing is we wanted to differentiate between, like Russ said, the guy that says, well, I'm a farmer, but he's not really a farmer. He's just doing it so he doesn't have to take out permits or so that he could do something. That's another thing that we struggle with in the zoning office is someone says, well, I have 3 acres, I'm a farmer. So this is where we struggle. And well, what do you do for farming? Well, I have a chicken and, I'm going to file an IRS form. But the guy has 3 acres and maybe he is, but we struggle with, is it really a farm? Is it a home farm? That's where we are trying to differentiate between, working commercial farms and home farms. So I just wanted to add that.
That's
Yep.
actually what I wanted to talk about.
Is that Ms. Scanlon?
Yes.
Please.
So it seems to me like the outline of this proposed regulation is intending to allow these events by right when you are a farm, and that the distinction between what we used to allow as a farm at 3 acres, maybe that 5-acre point is where you're more comfortable allowing events like that to occur. But I think it's kind of handicapping the intent of a commercial farm, which may not meet that acreage limit. So maybe we need to look at that.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And so that everyone understands, the 5-acre limit comes from, I believe, every surrounding town. So we surveyed the agriculture regs for all of the surrounding towns. And that 5-acre limit was what we found there. I'm very amenable, this is something that we've discussed previously, and I know myself and the planner have discussed several times, is if we have a mechanism that we think is legal and which does a better job than plot size to identify an actual working commercial farm, I'm on board. Mr. Mogul's given us a couple of ideas that we'll do some research on, see if we can utilize those. And I'll invite both commissioners and the farmers who have dialed in. If you've got an idea here, let us know. The best contact for that is the land use assistant. Her email is on the town webpage, and she routes emails throughout the land use department and to the commissioners. And so that helps us collate any comments that we get. And so I welcome everyone to go ahead and contact, myself or Liz or the land use assistant. If for no other reason, then we have your email address, because then we'll make sure that you're notified of when we move forward with an actual application or a public hearing. So we welcome all your comments. With that, I'm going to close the informal workshop on agritourism, agribusiness. I thank everyone for their participation and their input. We really appreciate it, and I expect to get more of it and understand that we are listening to those comments to try to make sure we make the best decisions possible for Ledyard. Next item under old business is item B, continued discussion of POCD update for sidewalk inventory. I received no further input from the commission on sidewalks that we had missed in our inventory. Mr. Boudreau updated the document that we have of the inventory. So the next steps are Tom and I are going to prepare a quick write-up describing what we see there, what we think is the most likely places to move forward with sidewalks in town. And I expect that we will bring that to the commission in September to have a look at and discuss. And from there, we'll move forward with trying to advertise that. Mr. Boudreau, have I missed anything in that?
No, that was fine.
Okay, thank you. Next item under new business, we have no new applications this month. So the next item is the STEAP grant. So would someone, I'll entertain a motion from someone. You may need to unmute your line in order to make a motion.
This is Commissioner Wood, so moved.
Do I have a second?
Commissioner Cherry, second.
Sure.
Okay, so that's a motion to adopt municipal certification for the STEAP grant. Ms. Burdick has done about 14 yeoman's work on getting this together. So Ms. Burdick, would you like to introduce this? And Roxanne, could you pull up the conceptual plan so that everyone can look at that same item?
Can you see it?
Yeah, can you make it a bit smaller?
I
Little
don't
more?
know.
Almost there?
Let's see. It's supposed to be a place over here where I can make it smaller.
Yeah, the minus and plus there on the top. If you click that, oh, that should work too. Yeah, just click that minus times and yep.
Is that too small, or do you want a little bigger?
That's fine with me. Ms. Griffin, please, you did a ton of work on this. So.
Yeah, so thank you, Mr. Chairman. On July 11th, is it July 11th or July 14th? The STEAP grant is the economic. I'm sorry, it's really late and I'm very tired. Trying to
Small
get
town
this together.
economic assistance program.
Yes, so it is the STEAP program. We were told that there would be no STEAP grant offering this year, and on July 14th, the governor announced that in fact there would be STEAP grant funding that we could apply for, and the deadline was 1 month. It was August 14th. So a bunch of staff got together, including Public Works, Park and Recreation, myself, the mayor, Chairman Woody, and we said, okay, what can we do that's fast? Because, you know, basically we had to have a shovel-ready, you know, project that we could put together quickly. So, and it had to be something that involves the community. It has to be a community driven project. So the last STEAP grants were the Ledyard Center, and then in 2008 there was actually a Ledyard Fairgrounds STEAP grant where they had done some approval. So we went out to contract and we hired a landscape architect to do this plan for us, and we did a cost estimate. Sadly, STEAP grants are usually $500,000. This offering was a maximum of $128,205. So we were very limited with what we can do. So this isn't actually the latest and greatest, but it's a nice concept. And I will send you all out, once it's got the final signatures on it, the final approval. But what we like to do is, in phase 1, we're going to create a, and I'm looking at the north arrow at the bottom of the map. So in the southwest corner of the site, where the Ledyard Fair keeps all their belongings, trailers and stages and whatnot, all of that's going to be removed, and we're going to create a pocket park there with a gazebo, with picnic tables, eventually benches. We couldn't afford to put that in the in this grant's estimate. We're going to construct the screened trash enclosure. The milled parking lot is going to have wood guide rail installed to provide a little bit better traffic flow. The pole barn is going to have a roof repaired. The poles, which are sort of falling apart, I think you can kick one of them. Those are all going to be replaced, and there's going to be new lighting put in there. The Holdridge Pavilion is going to have a new shingled roof on it. The poles there are pretty good, so we're going to repair those, and we're going to put lighting there. If you look at the top of the map, you're going to see some parking spaces. We're going to be creating 16 new paved parking spaces that you can access through entering through our easement on the old Ledyard Center School property. So that'll be really nice. That'll be all paved parking. There's wood guide rail right there, and it'll be just behind that. There's going to be benches placed up by the flagpole, 6 benches, and you can see them in sort of a an oval pattern. We also would like to have a stone dust walking trail. You can see that apparently there's a walking trail there now, but I couldn't tell where it was when I was out there. At some point, and not in this phase, because it's about $15,000, we want to construct that walking trail and put signage up so that people can, walk around. We figured 3 laps around is a mile. So, we tried to keep it simple. One of my favorite things is in this grant, we are proposing to plant a live holiday tree. So no more cutting down Christmas trees and putting it up. If you look at the front of the site by Colonel Ledyard Highway, you're going to see a holiday tree with lights. So that we're going to get a good sized tree. The DPW guys will keep it, trimmed properly. And there will be a permanent Christmas tree there, or holiday tree. So that's one of my favorite things. The other one of my favorite things, which is also not in this grant proposal, is if you look down to the right, you're going to see sort of seating. Do you see the amphitheater style seating? That's built into the hill, and it's under the trees. And we hope that where the old tennis courts is now, it's been paved over. So we would like to put a stage there and build those seating into the hillside and have a really nice place for the community to have plays or concerts or, whatnot. So this is the plan we have. Unfortunately, the playground equipment, which really does need to be replaced and it's super duper old, is very, very expensive. In fact, even one piece is more than the whole grant offering itself. So I can tell you that the Park and Recreation Director, Scott Johnson, is looking for grants to replace the swings and the playscapes. So anyway, I finished it today about just before our meeting. We had a very, very short window, and we got it out. And if anyone has any questions, please fire away.
Thanks, Liz. I think, full compliments to, Public Works and Liz and the mayor for everyone for chasing this down. What I think is, is good and notable about this is that this gives us an overarching plan for what to do on the town green, so that as we can identify other funding sources that might let us be able to pick up other pieces of this plan, we'll be able to do so. The current funding is largely going to building repair to make sure that we can get the most economic benefit out of the buildings that are currently on the town green. As they are now, they're only partially usable. And so getting those into a state so that they can support not only the farmers market, but other events that we want to happen on the town green is really important. So I think this is a good step in the right direction. And I think getting a plan like this in place is pretty valuable, even if we're only able to knock off a small amount in this time. And just so everyone knows, the STEAP grants in the past have been up to $500,000. This year, it's 130 grand. So much smaller scale than it has in the past, which is why we're only able to bite off a small piece of the things that we want to do here. Any questions from the commission?
Jeff Culo, one question.
Mr. Culo, please.
Does the grantor of the STEAP grant acknowledge that we would just be using it for one small piece, and do we have to say which piece before they will grant the money?
Yes, we do. So they support using this as part of a phased process. So they specifically say, is this a phased process? Which phase are you going after? And you have to submit a budget that delineates what you're using the money for.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And so this, I assume, is like an 824 review. That's why Planning and Zoning has it for action?
Effectively, yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Other commissioners?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Hearing no other questions, Roxanne, could you call the roll?
Mr. Kulo,
Yes.
Mr. Wood,
Yes.
Mr. Woody,
Yes.
Mr. Boudreau,
Yes.
Mr. Cherry.
Yes.
5 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion passes. Thank you all. And thanks to all the work that went into that. A month from initial announcement to it being delivered is a thing. Next item on the agenda we've already discussed. So approval of minutes.
So moved.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Was that Mr. Boudreau?
Yes.
Yes, thank you, Tom. Any corrections or comments on the regular meeting minutes from July 9th? Hearing none, Roxanne, could you call the roll?
Mr. Wood,
Yes.
Mr. Woody,
Yes.
Mr. Boudreau,
Yes.
Mr. Cherry,
Yes.
Mr. Kulo.
Yes.
5 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion passes. Thank you all.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Boudreau.
I just had a thought that we ought to consider with regard to our earlier discussions about the agricultural stuff. Ledyard was an agricultural town up until 1950. And Ledyard Center School, Ledyard Consolidated School, opened September 1949. Gales Ferry School opened September 1955. We didn't have planning and zoning regs till into the 60s. So it really kind of doesn't matter.
Thank you, Mr. Boudreau. I always appreciate your perspective. I have no correspondence. Ms. Burdick, reports on the list of grants that you have submitted in the last 48 hours.
Actually, we did receive verification in writing that our lot SIP project for the multi-purpose path will be funded. An RFP is going out for someone to prepare that application, engineering drawings, whatnot. That's super great. That was a really nice thing. We came in 4th out of 10, so not too bad. At 6. Well, it was finished at 6. And the other thing is our housing rehab program is really taken off. I put an ad, because we didn't have anybody applying for money and we had like 70 grand in the account. So I put an ad in the spring issue of the Events magazine and I have 13 applications. We may run out of money. So that might be a nice small cities grant application for next year. We also did have a conversation with DOH regarding the senior housing small cities grant, but they had a few questions for us and they wanted to hear a few more things like, why should we give you the money? And but we haven't heard back yet.
Do we know when we're supposed to hear on that?
No, I'm not positive.
Okay. Yeah, it's great news on the lot SIP grant. For people who don't know, that housing fund is a revolving fund. And so there is no point for us to sit on that money. The point is for people to use it, and then that fund is replenished when the house is sold. So it's really great. There's no reason for that to sit around with money in the bank. So it's great. Kyle, CEO report. I will comment that it's nice to see all of the approved lines there instead of the in review lines that we've had for the past couple of months. So you've obviously been busy.
Yeah, it's been slowing down a bit on intake, so we can get those other permits out. Did quite a few final inspections. People are finishing up projects. A couple new complaints. Just kind of working on some backlog stuff with all the other hats I've been wearing here. Trying to balance all that. We did get a couple home occupation permits. Reviewing those recently, it made me realize how out of date the application form is, just with questions that aren't relevant anymore to the current regs. So I'm in the process of rewriting that just to reflect the current regulations.
Great.
Short-term rentals, we received another one this week. I did not get a chance to review it yet. Those are still coming in, so yeah.
Good. Yeah, I think as your list of as we head into fall and there's fewer pools being built, I definitely like to see us beat a few trees and make sure that the short-term rentals are getting permits as they're supposed to. The 2-year sunset on that is going to come sooner than we expect, I suspect, and so we want to be in a place where we can say, this is doing something, this is doing nothing, and a part of that is understanding if that permit process is working or not.
I agree.
Yeah. Other questions from the commission?
Yeah, I got a couple for the zoning official. This is Commissioner Cherry. First couple of comments. I'm happy to see the single family homes inspected at 804 and 810 Long Cove Drive. Those that was 800 Long Cove that had been in works a long time, so it's good to see those coming through. Same thing with Quakertown Meadows, another home there. Question on what are we waiting on Ledge Light on 740 Colonel Ledyard Highway?
So our change of use forms, we send those out to Ledyard. They sign off on them.
Yeah.
They haven't approved it. I can reach back out to them next week. I know it's been a while. They might just be waiting for a different plan. I know the developers kind of back and forth on what they're doing. I know they keep submitting new plans, but I can reach out to them next week and get an update.
Okay, are we holding up their efforts or no?
As far as I know, and I can double check with the building official, I don't think they really received any building permits yet for work they need to do still. So I don't believe that we're holding them up now.
Okay. Comment on the rooster complaints. Anecdotally, I heard that some of the baby chicks that were sold locally turned out to be male, not female. They were.
Yeah, I guess it's that time of year.
They were looking to differentiate by color, and that didn't work real well. So that could be feeding your rooster complaints. And the last one is 20 Lorenz Drive, the old Sawchuck property. Has that ever been improved to the site plan that we approved and stuff?
Honestly, I'm going to be honest, I'm not too familiar with that project. I know there's an extensive file. Nothing's come up recently. I can certainly look into that and see, where the owner's at with everything.
My recollection was Sawchuck sold the property. The people that bought it decided they weren't going to use it for waste processing anymore. And the question is, did they improve it and remove the hazards? Or is it just sitting there? I don't know. I haven't been out there either.
Okay. Yeah, we can definitely look into that.
Ms. Burdick?
So you're correct. The property was purchased. Property was cleaned up, and it sits vacant and for sale for quite a bit of money, from what I understand, like $750,000. The fact that the addition is still not permitted has not been addressed yet. I'll have to go through that with Kyle. To be honest with you, it just fell through the cracks because it's just sitting there. And occasionally I take a ride by there in the morning and nothing's going on. So I'll review the large box we have with Kyle. He's going to love it. And we'll look into that when I return from vacation.
Appreciate it. And then one last thing, probably for Kyle. Chairman Woody pointed out that we did a lot of work on the change in use for 740 Colonel Ledyard Highway, including commission approval of the site plan. Can we package those minutes and drawings up and forward them on to Mr. Thorne so he realizes we actually did do our job in accordance with our regs? Telling him we did it and showing him we did it are two different things.
Yep, I don't think that'd be an issue. And obviously the site plan is, a good visual to show.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's doable. Yep.
Do we have Mr. Thorne's email address, or
Can send it to you.
I guess we could mail it to him. We know where he lives.
Well, I've also,
I have Bill Thorne's email address.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a great idea. I think it's always good to follow up.
I just feel bad for him because I thought we were pretty transparent, but I guess not, because I know both Bill and Jill are active in town. So maybe we're not as transparent as we thought we were.
That's always a good reminder. We're never as transparent as we should be. Any other comments from the commission on the planner or zoning officials' reports? Hearing none, I will entertain one final motion.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
That was Mr. Boudreau and Mr. Cherry. Thank you all. I will. Oh, I've lost my mouse.
Aren't we still here?
I can't hear anyone.
Why? I can see you.
Can you hear me?
Oh, I'm back. Okay, sorry about that.
Can you hear me now?
I apologize. We cut out there. With that, at 8:41, I will adjourn this regular meeting of the Ledyard Planning and Zoning Commission. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you very much, Roxanne, for standing in for the vacationing Deb. It was great to have you, and thank you very much. Good night, all.
You did a fabulous job in that STEAP application. I'm really impressed.
Good night.
Bye-bye.